Okay, this is not going to be a review, and it's not going to be a shrink rip or anything like that, or component um, review per se, but I did want to give some initial thoughts about this new game from Thin Red Lines, The Fate of All, because I think my first impression is that I can't wait to get started into the full gaming part of it, and that includes the tactical, but we'll get to that in a second. Just initial impressions are just, it's a beautiful game. The map is very typical Thin Red Lines. In fact, you probably, if you've got any of their Third World War line, I can't remember the name of that series, but I did try that. I didn't keep the game that I purchased, but and they've got two different series on European conflict, but this is their first foray into Ancients, and I think it's going to be a good one. The map is great in its detail, the color scheme, the definition of the mountains, and even though it's really great to look at, it's also very clear as to what is what. So that's the first really good thing. It's got a lot of great player aids, of course, one of the typical charts and tables that Thin Red Lines puts out. Very nice terrain legend here. All the charts you need to play the game. Perfect. One thing I want to point out right away, if you have not punched, if you've gotten this game or you're going to get this game and you haven't punched the counters on Sorted, two things. First of all, they do, the way they punch out of the sheets, basically one long strip is held by the two ends, and you have to be careful about taking those two ends off. Once you do that, they separate pretty well. There are a lot of nibs. I shouldn't say a lot, but there's usually a couple prominent nibs on each counter. So these have all been clipped. I always do that watching something. You can clip pretty fast if you're watching a movie or something. The biggest thing I would note about the counters is the color scheme. Now, I actually really like this color scheme. If you love earth tones, this is the game for you, because the counters are very much in that color scheme, that palette, the soft earth tones, the tans, the light greens, the light grays, rust. But and I think it's going to look great on the board. As you can see, this is set up for the very first short scenario. I don't know how short it is. I think it lasts at least a year and a half in monthly turns. But I don't know enough about the plays to figure out how fast that would play. Here's my caveat when you're punching and sorting. There's two indispensable things for the counters. The first is really good lighting. You are not going to be doing well if you have trouble at all with finer shades of and tints of color. These are all distinct, I mean, in this bright light that I've got on it, it's pretty easy. If it's at all, I mean, when you turn this off, and all of a sudden things start to blend together, and you just have to be careful to separate and label right away, because there are distinct factions, of course, and there's different provinces that have their own units. The indispensable thing, which I didn't see right away because I wasn't looking at the charts, I was looking for this in the rule book, and it's actually in the charts and tables in the very back. This is what you need, and it lists each of the sample units from the recruitment areas in those different provinces, and then very importantly, it will tell you the origin, the region, and then the recruitment areas. And that a lot of times you'll see this on the units. It took me a while to label. I did the mistake of trying to set up this before I really had the units labeled correctly, because if you look at the scenario setup, this is how they list it. So you can see, hopefully, where it lists a leader. That's a Persian leader, obviously. And then it says 1X, one light infantry Phrygian unit. And you have to find that, and the best way is having it labeled properly. But they're also listed here, so you can find, there's Phrygia, and then you'll see what color palette that is. See, if you look at this, I mean, there's a lot of these tannish brown, rusty color here, and then you've got a lot of the greens, light greens. So you have to be very careful about how you're sorting, and that was probably the most frustrating thing, was setting this up at first. And I'll know better next time. They'll be labeled better. So that's first impressions about the map and the counters, and some helpful hints if you haven't gotten started yet. I think it's interesting with all this very soft colors and earth tones they've used. The two dice are very distinctive. That purple for Macedonian, red for Persia, I assume. Another thing I really love these fate cards. The backs are nice, but the user side, this is beautiful because the text is fairly clear. It might be a little hard to read without good lighting, but I love this imprint, these pictorial imprints on each of the cards. They really make have a distinctive look that way. And then one last note before I check out. I think I'll insert before I go to the tactical map. There's 4 maps. This is a 1 map scenario. There are 2 or 3 scenarios with 1 map. And then there's 1 small scenario with 2 maps. Let's see. It might be 2 and 2. No, there's two scenarios with 1 map and 2 scenarios with 2 maps. And you'll see how they're laid out when I insert the clip. I did a little clip with all the maps. There'll be actually this when you set it up facing this way, this one will be up. And then there's the lower Mediterranean, or the main part of the Mediterranean is down here with North Africa. And then there's two eastern maps over on this side that will link together, and they fit together pretty well. When I laid it out, I could line up the hexes pretty close to perfect. So that's really nice. But you'll need, if you do those two maps, or well, 2 or 4, putting plexiglass over is probably, I hate to think about taping like in the old days and we tape maps together. And then the last thing to note about this game, if you don't know a lot about it yet or haven't looked into it, he does, Fabrizio does offer tactical combat instead of doing regular combat on the board, simpler combat that you might be used to in a game like this, where it's a lot of maneuver and taking control of certain areas and maybe just doing one big battle here or there. And it says right here, I like the way he puts this, land combat. Land combat can be resolved by conducting a proper battle with tactical combat. Proper, I assume, is his personal opinion that's the way it should be done. And then if involved sides cannot agree, or simpler land combat, if the involved sides cannot agree on the system to use, the winner of a single round of Greco-Roman wrestling decides. So what I would like to see is the first people to send in a video of a disagreement on which kind of land combat they're going to do. And I want to see a Greco-Roman fight of two people that are playing Fate of All. That would be fun. I should give some prizes up for that. But if I bring in camera over here, you can see the tactical combat map. And that is, I think I counted, I don't know, 7, 8 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7 pages at the end of the rule book. So there's 16 pages for the main rules. And then if you want to do tactical combat, which I do want to, and I know many people would like to try this, and just really looking, like glancing at the tactical combat rules, I'm reminded a lot of these games up here that we all know, and that's the Great Battles of History. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. There's no terrain. You can actually, in glancing at the rules, you can add, if the battle takes place in a forest hex, say, then I think you can add some of these counters, forest or rough. Again, I haven't looked in detail on that, but that seems interesting. I noticed there's been a lot of questions so far on BGG about the tactical combat and some of the rules. And Fabrizio is really good about answering questions. I think there were several questions answered today. So that's where I'm at with this. Ready to get started. Macedonians are up there in their huge stack, ready to go. So I'll check in on this system and this game as soon as I get a little bit farther into it and give you an idea what it's like. So thanks. We'll see you next time.